Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Want to thank you for tuning in live or listening to replay. Really excited for you listening or, like I say, listening to replay. Get a bunch of people listening to replay, so I always really appreciate everyone that listens in the replay and everyone that listens live. So, thanks for tuning into the vault. This is going to be an awesome episode. Who can I trust with my tax return? And I really thought this was something that uh, the vault we thought that this would be a great thing to talk about because who can you really trust? And I think that this goes among many realms of who can you trust. I guess from for doing them. And so I think that when we look at the vault individual saying who can you trust with the tax return, it's not actually like H&R Block or someone like that, not discussing H&R Block or anything of that nature. No one, with those type of companies, not tax companies, but who can you trust once you actually get the return? Who can you actually trust, ladies and gentlemen? Can you trust a banker? Who can you trust? Are you going to give your money over to a stockbroker? Who are you going to trust? And which is really interesting. Recently, I had a gas station and I was talking to this individual and he pulled up in a Mercedes Benz and I was actually dressed up, and the story goes where this individual said he said he was wealthy one. I was like, okay. And he said don't trust anybody. And I felt that was very odd because when we talk about who you can trust, at one point if you're going to be dealing in trusteeship, you have to be able to trust people. You have to be able to establish trusted relationships, uh, and be able to be in those relationships. And so when we talk about who can you trust with the money from the actual tax return, who can you trust? Do you trust anyone? Like this individual said they didn't trust anyone. No, I'm not looking to insult anyone's intelligence, but you definitely want to consider who can you trust with that. I was talking to another individual early today, and we were talking about how in the public they say that people might be shorted even on their tax returns, and the individual was very upset because they felt like their emotions were being played with. And this individual said people are hurting out there, and I said, wow, that could be a good reason to talk today about who could you really trust with it. Because if people that say, oh, we're supposed to be giving you a return are going to short you, how would that make you feel? What would you think about that? And that's why this episode is so vital. Who can you trust with your tax return? It's almost one of those things. Do you even want one, ladies and gentlemen? Own nothing, control everything. You don't own, so there's no need for a return. See, it's not called a return on investment. It's just called a return. So that's how it should be. Who can you trust? Always in the vault, we make it a point to talk and say, okay, who's going to be your successor trustee? And it's just always interesting to see that question be asked. That's who you can trust. You can trust your successor trustee. That's the first one. Your successor trustee, they're a trustee in training. That's what the vault does. Trustee in training. You have to be a trustee in training. Why? Because trust is practicing trust law, which is practicing, being just a good trustee. You have to know trust law if you're in a trust as a trustee or in other positions. I think that, or the vault, we would always say it's important to know what you're getting your hands into. We talk about on this channel to go to the law library. How critical is that? You know, it's really amazing to see How many people actually take heed and go and do those things? And then on the back end of that, who can you trust? Because those are trustees in training. You know, one of the things the mentors used to always say was the two reasons wealth isn't passed on is A, because there's not a manual to pass on that wealth. You have to have a manual. That's trustee training at the vault. That is what it is getting in contact with the vault, Christian at trustchristian.com, and getting in contact with the vault, making a point to say, I need to be able to have access to some type of literature that's private to pass along to my family. So they don't say, oh well, in phases. There's a there's an accumulation phase. There's a holding phase. There's even a selling phase. And when we get into these different phases as trustees, and I love trusteeship. The vault is all about communicating that thought, communicating trusteeship. Why? Because it's private. It says there are people that are private, there are trusts that are private. Everything's in a safe place. It's in a vault. People say once again, well, who can I trust with my tax return? That's the question of the of coming season right now. And like I say, this isn't about a company doing the tax return. It's about the money that you get from it. What are you gonna do? Who can you trust with that money? And I was talking to a trustee, and the conversation was a trust. You can trust a trust. Can you trust other trustees? Those are trustees, of course. But not all trustees are created equal. That's something we find out in the trust life. And I just encourage you all to understand that there is no short on your return for money if you don't have a return. It's called own nothing, control everything. You don't need to own the capital anymore that your family estate is building. Be in a position of just controlling and stewarding an asset, stewarding assets, and making it a point to do it in a proper position. Understanding contract law is private. And people say, well, what should I go to the law library and study? Contract law. Why? Because you've been dealing in contracts since you've been 18 years old. Dealing in contracts, whether it's and more importantly, when I say 18, that's when they try to say like in a stature of legal competence and things of that nature. And at the end of the day, people were signing contracts before that. But a lot of the times, I like to speak about the implied as opposed to express on paper, whereas implied is through verbal communication. Individuals have created trust through verbal communications, and those things are critical to understanding. If you make those, you put yourself in a position where there's a contract, and contract law once again is private. So a person might not grow up to have understood that there are implied contracts, and those are taken to court and won on just as much as an express contract. Implied contracts can be taken nowadays as text messages, emails, and I know they're more express because they're written down, but a lot of times, sometimes people don't think contracts mean anything when they're in a specific medium, specifically email, specifically text message, even over the phone or just talking in general. And it's important to have proper documentation of meetings. In trust we call it trust meetings, or excuse me, trust minutes. And there's a meeting, and the minutes are recorded. And so that's important to be able to be on that level of understanding contract. So when people ask, where should I be, that's where I think a lot of people would really benefit greatly. So I do appreciate you all tuning in live or listening to replay. If you have any questions, I'm gonna open up the questionnaire box here. So how is everybody today or tonight, wherever you are in the world? I finally entered the chat. So, who can you trust, or who can I trust with my tax return? The one thing I say is yourself. And I know that might sound like a dangerous situation, but I can let you all know that I always say, well, who can, invest your money better than you can? I always say to ask people that question. People are going and going. What are you going to go to the bank? Or a lot of times people, uh, people, they 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 go give it to someone else. Is that the rule? To give the money that you supposedly earned to someone else? So thank you. I gotta go through the list now. Tony, Earl, Crystal, Gustavo, Chicago Crypto, Jaya, and B Alexandria. Appreciate you all. Golden Tiger. What is it? Is it gold? Yes, Golden Tiger. Uh, so yes. Everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat. I'm actually going to do a bonus for you all today. So anybody that is listening in live, I'm going to talk about it in as well. Individuals in the replay, you're getting just the bonus of what I wanted to talk about today, which was we got a good question. I gotta type this into the chat first. All right. Would you agree if one obtains cryptocurrency via doing a service for an individual but never transferred in Federal Reserve note, do I owe taxes for the amount of money? Well, you don't need to ask me that question, Chicago Crypto Hustler. I would say, he said, I meant to say I wouldn't have. Well, once again, I think this is where you always are advanced because you're putting yourself in a position where you want to know those questions, the answers to those questions. And I would just say go to the laws that you can prove right now that say that you have to. And so um, if you can't put your hand on it, then you already have answered your question. At the same time, uh, I don't know if you could say publicly you love cryptocurrency. I don't know if that would be good, ladies and gentlemen. I love blockchain, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, the Vault loves blockchain. Blockchain is incredible technology. So yeah, that the blockchain is a new technology, a technology, ladies and gentlemen, that's been released, and I think a lot of individuals are partaking in the development of that technology, that landscape. It's, when you look forward to a new internet of open book ledgering in general over the internet, they've asked for a lot more accountability in that space, and so I think that blockchain technology provides that. It's great technology to make sure that you're dealing. But at this point, I wanted to go into what's considered the bonus, which is a lot of individuals email the vault about a non-disclosure agreement, and I think that I just want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, if you all understand the power of a non-disclosure agreement, that is a very, very powerful document, and a breach of non-disclosure is a breach of trust, ladies and gentlemen. It's a breach of contract. And I share this with you all because a lot of times individuals don't feel like there's any recourse when there's a breach of contract, but it's very imperative to understand that when you understand that everything's in trust, whether it's a conversation over the phone or a conversation through even paper communications, it's a contract. And so I just we always are excited about uh, who you can trust, which is once again yourself, trustees, a trust. Uh, it was coming up through the community. We all learned that the only people you could trust were in trust, and so the vault is a place that I think is it's been trusted for over 3 years. What we've done to YouTube, and the YouTube has been awesome for a solid year plus, but just multiple years of doing the vault and doing private family consulting when it comes to all of those things, just just making it a point to let individuals know, this is the route to be. Own nothing, control everything. And so it's just exciting to be in a position that we're in right now with individuals that want to get into the training. If you want to get into the trustee training, you can enroll at Christian at trustchristian.com. And there's a breach of, excuse me, not a breach. There's a I guess you would say a non-disclosure agreement that everyone is going to have to partake in. Why? You're looking to be into a private environment, ladies and gentlemen. When you go work for any traditional company, you know, many companies have those things, ladies and gentlemen. But I also let you know, why do you think they have them in place? Because they want to not have you break. Or even as a owner of a company, is just look into that. Look what will be not the purpose of knowing how to be protected, ladies and gentlemen. Spending a lot of time signing contracts. Why not know what contracts can protect ideas and things of that nature? And it's just interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, just some of the studies, the things that I've experienced, or the vault, I should say, has experienced, and you just see that the contracts that you want to have in place, such as a non-disclosure agreement, are forever the key essential first step to doing business. And it's just interesting and it's powerful to see individuals either implement that strategy or not. And then when individuals almost breach that trust, you see the repercussions of that. And it's critical where individuals are not able to understand that. Ladies and gentlemen, it's interesting. I think about even how if you breach a trust, you can be sued. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in such a, recently I've read this word, it's called litigious, where people want to sue people. And I just say, at the vault, we think about it and we say, wow, we live in a place where a non-disclosure is more critical now than ever sue. Even if you have to sue somebody for stealing your stuff, you'll have no problem with suing them. Why? Because they were willing to at least sign an agreement and say, oh, we're not going to do this. And now, who put themselves in a position where they can be sued for breach of contract? How powerful was that? Ah, what an amazing place we live in. We're gonna read some comments here. I think some good comments coming in. Chicago Crypto says, often look at the crypto wallets acting as a form of trust, whereas the wallet itself owns the crypto and you are in control of it. If one was to lose their private key, the wallet would still have ownership of the crypto. Just some of them thought, well, it's interesting to see the wallets actually hold it. I've recently talked to some, I'll put this one out there. Recently talking to some investors in the space, and we were talking about what was the name of this thing. It's the device that you can actually hold the crypto on, like a USB drive, which is interesting to hear about. I forgot exactly what it's called. I got to remember it. I think it's called I don't want to call it the block, but I think it comes from actually blockchain itself. But when you say it's a trust, everyone knows, once again, the trust is just a contract. And I have actually a good story for everyone, so please don't be upset that we're having a good conversation here with Chicago Crypto Capital, because he actually said something where recently this guy faked his death for $190 million in crypto, and supposedly the key was with him. If you all Google that story about a man passing away, they almost said he faked his death for $190 million, which is, and it was on crypto key, I guess. Well, like not the key itself, like when you punch it in to transfer anything, but more on the, like, it's like a little like wallet or something. And like I say, he even had the key, and they say he passed, and it was just crazy to even hear that story. If you guys get a chance to look it up, you all can see that might be a good story for you to browse up on how how wealth can be taken that quickly, $190 million or $150 million. We're gonna do Jay Smith's question: how does one's governance status pertain to obtaining privilege access to an accredited investor? Oh, that's a great question. So, it's easy because are you living in trust or are you living in LLC or S corp or C corp? It pertains to the obtaining of privilege partially just from the perspective of the governance is based off of the actual document. That's really a big deal based off of the company by the bylaws. Company governance is, that's the company governance, and it's the status in which what are you operating at governance? Are you operating as an officer? What are you operating as? I love hearing politicians say, I'm operating in this office. It's like, exactly, it's an office. You don't stay there forever. CEOs get fired too, or they leave the company, they go do something else with their life. Not all CEOs stay with companies. So it's an office, it's a place of, a title, and for a temporary period. And so access is based off of a status, not just the governance of the actual documents that an individual may be administering, but the assets that are held on the books of that particular company. So I would say, that's a big deal right there. It's very powerful, very important to be in a position where the governance is based off of how much capital possibly that is assets under management, which is really, really cool. Accredited investor is just assets under management. How much assets are you managing under management based off of, I guess, particular tax cycle, maybe 3 years, or even also it's something you really want to look into. Accredited investor, look a lot deeper at the exact definition of it, because that's what really lets you know that you're managing a certain amount of assets, and that puts you in a particular status of accredited investor. So does your governance status affect what you are required to pay? That's very subjective. No, I wouldn't say that your governance status, to a degree, but I would say, that's something you want to like look into. Does your governance status affect what it, that's important. I think that's a very open-ended question. I think listening to that, when it comes to does your governance status affect that, is a great question. Very good question. I think you should talk to definitely counsel on that for sure. Does governance status affect what you are required to pay in taxes? You gotta talk to individuals that are affecting that governance status. Governance status is this big deal, I would definitely say. But when you say governance status, very vague. Like I say, that could be dealing with the document, and they could be dealing with assets under management, because sometimes statuses are um, they're not always effective. They're not exactly the same. Status and governance. I would say they have to be separate terms, in my opinion. Just from looking at it, if I was looking, that's definitely something I would say. Uh, Thank you, Crystal, for tuning in love. Can trust vacate. I don't even know if that is a word. Areas. I don't know if that is a word, but this is sincere, unique. SU. Um, can't trust. I wouldn't say yes to that particular question. And yes, great questions and feedback. Say 84 media 32 turn your LLC into a corporation. I would say, you want to talk to, either get a consultation, King Khan, or make it a point to contact the agency or whoever issued that paper or that form. I think they're pretty good at giving out information about what you're looking for. Sincere Unique said they reached out. Okay, well, feel free to reach out again. Right. Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate that. And Ernest Robinson, thank you all for tuning in live or listening to replay this far. Who can you trust with the tax return was all about who can you trust with that money that you get back from the tax return. And I would say the vault has always looked to be a trusted place. And I think that, a lot of people are always looking to give their money away to different sources. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, who can you trust? And the vault is one of those places. And as well, yourself, family, trustee, we always want to go back to those individuals, a trusted self, individuals that are dealing in trust. And I don't want to say even individuals, because when you talk legalese, ladies and gentlemen, an individual is almost considered to be an individual taxpayer. So there's very thin line between just walking the pace of saying, oh, an individual taxpayer is an individual taxpayer, but an individual has almost been amalgamated to an individual taxpayer, and that's critical when you guys are looking to do business, understanding that, knowing what a person is, knowing what all of those things are. Once again, sincere. Those are child support is almost like a patented term, like or was it Planned Parenthood? Owning copyrights to speak on that in a public platform. I think you want to make sure that you have proper standing, and so that would be something I would say you either get a consultation about or you contact that agency, because um, yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things. This is like a bonus thing. Can a trust get rid of a debt? It's like, ladies and gentlemen, it's very thin line when individuals talk like that. I think that it's important to understand that a trust is a person, just like consider me and you. And when you put yourself in a position of being a person, a person can plead poverty, ladies and gentlemen. It's called bankruptcy. So, I look at individuals and I like, even if you read 7, 11, or 13, they say they actually put the estate into a trust and then they have a bankruptcy trustee. I mean, these are public pieces of knowledge, and individuals are not, like, are you not aware of that? Or like, what part of that you don't know? If you don't know if you don't go through it, but if you do your research on it, you'll see that. So, I encourage individuals to really make it a point to sharpen their sword. Um, there's no way I'll ever say, oh, it's 2009 and there's so many new people that are engaging in this information. I would say, well, make it a point, trust what the vault would say, sure, make it a point to go to the law library and see if you can do that. Everything should be that you do should be backed by the law, ladies and gentlemen. It has to be. It has to be, ladies and gentlemen. So I appreciate you all for tuning in live or listening to replay. It's been an awesome episode. The Vault, Christian at trustchristian.com for consultations, trustee training. Look forward to hearing from you all. Peace and